Hello everyone, welcome to the AMA session number 5. This is the second general AMA that PGI have done. Today it's just going through a bunch of, as it says, very generalised questions covering a range of topics, so we'll just jump straight in there. The first one, and it's a big one, is what are your thoughts on the Epic Store exclusivity for MechWarrior 5? Rust, by the way, answers all of these questions. He doesn't have any members of the other development team on board, so if you've seen any previous sort of discussions with Russ in the past, it can be a bit erratic at times. But they've been expecting the question. He loves what Epic's doing. He admits it's a biased view of his own. He prefers the rates that Epic offers, as do many developers. He wishes Steam would be more competitive. I have to agree with that. Steam should be more competitive with Epic so as not to have this exclusivity shit happen in the first place. He says, as far as exclusivity goes for MechWarrior 5, it would be good for them as a small dev. At this point, they have no plans for it. Any pre-orders you currently make will be for Steam, but they are also on the cusp of being able to get it on Good Old Games with the GOG Galaxy integration into MechWarrior 5. So apparently in the future, when the game comes out, you'll be able to choose what platform you want your key for. Whether this means Epic is on the table is still up in the air, but the way he was talking about it seems to suggest that yes, they will probably have it on Epic Store at some point as well, but alongside Steam and alongside GOG. When will they have a modding AMA was the next question. He said soon, but Russ's version of soon is June, so what he actually meant to say was June. Next question, are there currently any plans or possibilities to expand availability of MW5 to other distribution platforms like Good Old Games, Windows Store, Humble Bundle? Obviously this kind of relates back to the previous question, but he did mention there that Humble Store is also a definite for the future, so if you like to buy stuff on there as part of a bundle, it will appear in those. Are there any plans to have some of the bigger merc organisations within MechWarrior 5 as factions to take contracts from? The short answer to that was no. As I said, Russ does have an issue of rambling sometimes and getting off point, but basically he said that only the 5 great houses and later on Razelhag, the Fraggles, will eventually be a mission giver, but you won't be taking missions from, say, Wolf's Dragoons or Grey Death or something like that. That's not going to be the idea. Next, are there any plans to allow terrain such as ice, gravel, mud, so on to affect your mobility of your mech, obviously depending on weight classes and the such? Apparently the only thing that will cause any kind of slowdown for your mech will be running into buildings. So as you smash through large buildings, your mech will reduce in speed, but they're not planning on having any kind of terrain specific effects, mainly because they didn't want to detract from the fun of having a mission, I guess, that takes place on like a massive sort of muddy flooded area that causes your mech to slow down. They didn't see how that would be very much fun, so it's not going to affect it. Next question was, do you have a clearer picture of what the final specs will be for the game? If not, do they have an ETA for them? Apparently they have nothing specific, but he did in this AMA ask for a note to be made for the QA team to be able to generate some system requirements for them. So for any of you who have been waiting, hopefully the next AMA session or possibly an update on MWO's website will give you some of that. Next question was, with destructible buildings, will we no longer be able to hop from building top to building top in MechWarrior 5? The answer to this is you will, in fact, be able to use your mech to jump jet hop between buildings, but of course it's all dependent on the size of the building and the weight of your mech. A Highlander hopping around landing on a smaller building will definitely crash through the top of it, but things like Jenners and Panthers and stuff should be able to. And much larger buildings will be able to support assault mechs jumping on them, for instance, so it's still there. Next question, is it possible for you to start posting 4K screenshots? Apparently they can, but they don't have a lot of 4K monitors in the office. They did order a bunch of new ones, but apparently they weren't 4K. So they had some kind of mix-up. So I guess maybe PGI will do some kind of competition where they give away some of the monitors that they weren't 4K that they thought were 4K and they accidentally bought the wrong ones. That's a joke, by the way, they aren't really doing that. Is there any chance we will see HUD or variations of such that was presented back in the early 2016 gameplay trailer? No. Apparently the HUD that you saw at MechCon is the HUD that will be used in the release. Russ suggested that maybe modders will be able to make new HUDs or modify the HUD in whatever way that people would prefer. As an idea, it sprung to mind, maybe a cool idea would be certain faction or manufacturer specific HUDs for different mechs. You know, Cataphract being made in Lao space, for instance, might have a very Lao themed kind of HUD setup, or something unique to them. I don't know. How will co-op mode work? Will it be LAN or worldwide? I thought this was an odd question, but I guess some people still want to do LAN connectivity, and you can do it. Apparently, you can LAN you and 3 other computers together and play it that way if you wish. Though he didn't give any specifics about how. Just you can. What will jump jet scaling be like compared to MechWarrior Online with tabletop? Will distances be more in line with the lore? Russ deviated a bit, but basically the answer to that one was jump jets won't be like MechWarrior Online's jump jets, where it just feels like you activate a very slow hover mode. You will have a bit more freedom, but that said, you won't be jumping like the actual mechs do in tabletop with the idea of a kind of arcing jump. They'll just be more in line with how jump jets used to be, a bit more along the line of jump sniping and leaping over things and gliding, but yeah, not like MWO, but also not like tabletop, so somewhere in the middle, I guess. What was the next one? Any idea when you'll start allowing press previews and hands-on time with the alpha or beta out in the wild? Answer to this was closer to launch, mid-August, and up to about 10 days before. As a point, I know I won't be getting anything like that, not like I'm expecting it anyway. How hard is it to get new mechs? Russ's answer was just earn money. Just do missions and buy them from the market. Seemed like a very straightforward answer, really. Any ideas on those that pre-ordered the game first? I copied these verbatim, so any ideas on those that pre-ordered the game first, went up for pre-order, will be getting some of the recent arrows? This is to do with the current extra variants for MechWarrior Online, the King Crab, the Marauder, the Catapult. Apparently May 21st will be the injection date for those mechs if you've pre-ordered MW5. What's been the greatest challenge in development so far for MechWarrior 5? Russ, he really likes the question. He did. Couldn't get enough of it. A little party popper went off and everything in the background, but he can't pick any one issue. It says some issues are things like the AI systems, the front end, the UI, being one example. He then talked a lot about previous MechWarrior games and how they were good back then, but if you play them now, are they as good? Did this for about 10 minutes. I don't know whether he was just filling time. And yeah, the answer was there. The rest of it was just weird. Will the Mech Lab be similar to MechWarrior Online, as in limited hardpoints, etc.? Or will it be more restrictive, like MechWarrior 3 or 4 will be open? Bear in mind, as I said, I just copied the text. I think he meant was, will we have inflated hardpoints? And this is to reiterate, because some people I think have been hoping that it was going to be more like MechWarrior Online. The answer to this was, it is not open like MWO. The key design goal was to make sure that the metagame was based around the market changes in-game. As the new tech became available, more variants would become available. The Mech Lab doesn't have inflated hardpoints for mechs. You can take a weapon out, you can add more armor, ammo, heat sinks, but you can't remove a weapon like an AC-10 and then put an AC-20 and then put an AC-10 in its place and use the free weight for upgrading the lasers to larges. You can't do that. If you take an AC-20 out, you have to put something of an equivalent in. So basically another AC-20, possibly an LB-20, I don't know. Essentially, you'll have different manufacturers of those weapons, so you might get a better type of AC-20, and that's what you might replace, but you can't just freeform redesign them as you do in MechWarrior Online. Will we see the return of proper collisions, knockdowns, and death from above? Russ mentioned it's been discussed before. There's a lot on the list of what they'd like to do. Knockdowns are not going to be added, though, because of a lot of extra animation work that would be required. Collisions are there for bumping into other mechs and buildings, of course. DFA, he said it's possible, but most people think of DFA, they're thinking of a mech like literally landing on top and crushing it. It's like just completely destroying the mech. It's going to be more like MWO, where if you jump jet and land on a mech, you'll do damage, but it's not specifically tied around, oh, this mech landed on top, thus does times 10 damage or something. It's not going to work. So, the short answer to that is you can bump into things, but the other two, no, not really. Does anyone test if the game build happens to run on Linux through Wine? UE usually works quite well on this, so UE being Unreal Engine, for anyone who doesn't know. They haven't tested it, though. They're not sure if they'll have time. No promises. How in-depth is the company management aspect of MechWarrior 5, such as contracts, repairs, arms markets, personnel management? I know where he was going with the question. Things like how negotiable are the contracts, how in-depth is the repair system, the marketing, personnel management. Can you adjust the amount you pay your different pilots because you may feel like this person deserves more cash? It might, you know, increase their stats, kind of thing. I think Russ kind of missed it. He just said, like, oh yeah, those things are in the game. But that was it. There's no answer, unfortunately. So then we move to another. Will there be any monetization similar to what we have in MechWarrior Online? The big question here is it going to be mech packs? He says no for the vast majority of these things, such as cockpit items, paint colours, decals, that kind of thing. Mech packs will be there as DLC, just not in a kind of monthly setup. They're talking about this being a post-launch type thing. Next question was, will the Roughneck be in MechWarrior 5 and the other original mechs? He said yes, they made them, so they'll be in the game so long as they work in the timeline. Someone said, if it's not a secret, how many people have already pre-ordered the game? Russ doesn't say specific numbers. He says they're happy with them, but apparently they're nowhere near as high as MechWarrior Online's Founders program. So, not in the millions. At least as far as revenue is concerned. Sana.net's MechWarrior 5 page already has a list of mechs that were in production or used during the timeline between 3015 and 3049. However, not all of the mechs from this period are in MechWarrior Online. Far from it. In fact, how good are the chances that we'll see these ones that are not in MechWarrior Online, or likewise being appropriate, added into the game, such as the longbow? He likes the question. He would like to say yes to all these, but he deviates quickly to development time. The reason being that they won't be adding all of the timeline-specific mechs in that aren't in MechWarrior Online. We probably won't see them at launch, but if it's successful, DLC is an option for adding these mechs, basically. DLC is, by the way, Russ's crutch for a lot of things. If we can't do it post-release DLC. So don't be surprised if the list of things that would be DLC would be massive, because this at the moment this is encountered like having your own dropship, buying more mechs, having playable vehicles, being able to have more camo schemes, colours, customization within the mechs, customization on the outside of the mechs, customization on the inside of your dropship, the ability to have more systems to travel on. Everything's been DLC so far, so don't be surprised if some of this doesn't appear. Will MechWarrior 5 have translated audio and video maybe as well? Thinking this is a localization question. He said it's unlikely outside of ethics. If anyone's never heard of ethics, it's English, French, Italian, German, Spanish as your base localization. And outside of that, it seems unlikely for the audio. Text will most likely have translations, but yeah, if unfortunately you'll say Russian localization, Polish, that kind of thing, it's going to be a bit of an issue. Will we be able to salvage hero or unique variants? Russ, this is verbatim. He says, great question. I'm going to move on. Yep, that was his answer to that one. Will we see any in-depth electronic warfare, passive and active sensors? He referred to the AI AMA that they did last time about this, with the way that the AI can detect you based on certain factors, how much noise you're making, whether you're firing weapons in the distance, that kind of thing. So not really an answer regarding the question, unfortunately. Question, do you plan to retrofit any popular maps from MechWarrior 5 into MechWarrior Online? He hadn't thought about the idea. There's no plans for it. It's not out of the realms of possibility. Some of these maps could be, but they weren't built specifically around the idea of having two teams spawning in and playing on them, so most likely a no. Any chance mobile field bases will make an appearance for longer campaigns? He doesn't know if they will be in longer campaign missions, but he does know the mobile field base will be there in some form or another. Are there plans for mechs with arm actuators to engage in hand-to-hand combat? No, he stresses the fact that it would be bad, in his opinion, because the animations for the first-person perspective combat, he said, would be a huge investment, would take a separate team 6 months or something to develop them so they don't look terrible. So essentially no, and likely never. Will you be able to run your own private dedicated servers? He says it's a holdover question that he calls it. MechWarrior 5 is different. It doesn't really need it because you'll be using things like Steam and good old games, and your system, if you're the host, is essentially the server, so you wouldn't need it. Someone asked, is the Steam Workshop mod support still on schedule, and will we get access to it regarding original models and textures for editing purposes? He says it is still planned. The Unreal Engine is a lot more moddable. Something to look at closer when the game is near a release. An SDK will likely be post-release and not before. Someone asked a technical question about the UE engine. Is it accurately mapped in Unreal units, i.e. centimeters? So that could be something like around 100 units. So Russ has no idea about this. Scaling is based on MWO's mech data, so the mechs will be scaled to each other. Buildings are obviously a different thing, so he doesn't know. We'd have to ask someone about that, he says. The big VR question, is it still a long-term goal? And will you kill cockpit walking when you do it? Cockpit shake from fire should be fine, thanks. He says VR is still a long-term goal, post-release though. The way he was talking about it, the impression I got was that it wasn't a priority. It's something that he is up for doing. It's just not going to be the kind of thing that you're going to see within the first 6 months of release. Can you go into more depth on co-op features, number of players, campaigns? He just reiterated the basic things. 4 players with you. Instant action will allow you to set the type of mission you want to play, what kind of enemy forces you're against, the difficulty of those enemies. So just our instant action is basically just going to probably be one of the longer modes that people get out of the game, to be honest. Will MWO see any Unreal refit to CryEngine? Basically, will we see MechWarrior Online move over to MechWarrior 5's engine using its assets and stuff? If it's a runaway success, MechWarrior Online might be ported, but no promises. There was a MechWarrior Living Legends team member asking would there be any specific tools that are required for modding for MechWarrior 5, that kind of thing. Russ said that there shouldn't be. Basically any kind of mod tools that currently work with Unreal Engine can be used for that to modify MechWarrior 5, so no problems there. He's not aware that there would be any specific tools for MechWarrior 5 at the moment, but he would update people if something came up. Did PGI develop their own foliage, or did they grab issues from an asset store? He says majority all items are made in engine, and he said some might be from Speed Trade. I don't know what that is though, unfortunately. There was a question about would the player basically feel more like a kind of big shot in the universe from playing the story, as in will they be more like a Kerensky type character affecting parts of the history, or are they just going to be, you know, ho-hum infantry spotter 2187 from Nowheresville? This has been discussed before. Basically, they don't want the story to have any kind of, oh, you know, you won this famous battle in the War of 3039. It's not going to be like that. It's your own sort of self-contained story that doesn't have any impact on the universe. Do we have a number of how many total mech chassis will be in the game? Somewhere around 50, without mentioning all the variants with each, so, you know, a few hundred. Couple that with later DLC, and obviously this increases. And he also mentioned with modding support as well, the number of actual mech chassis could exponentially increase. And the last question that he did, if players want to support you in any in the way that gives you the most profit, which platform should they buy on? It's almost like Mr. Burns, you know, your success is like a runaway freight train. Their portal for ordering gives them the most money. When they do open it up for other platforms like Valve and obviously Good Old Games, they won't get as many pennies from each sale. But yeah, at the moment, basically, if you want to pre-order the game, pre-order it through their portal. And that was pretty much it. It was very, very general. There wasn't anything specific there, no big questions, but I think the problem is, I think these AMAs may be coming a little too quickly, and some of the questions are starting to overlap quite a lot. I'm really hoping that they move the mod AMA up a little bit sooner, because I think that's one of the really big things that people are hoping to get more information about. But outside of that, yeah, I don't know what they're going to do for their next one, but that was that. So all the images you've been seeing on this video as well are from the Discord channel with their weekly screenshot for MechWarrior 5, so gives you an idea of what some of the assets might look like. It was nice to see the rifleman in one of them as well. That's cool. So yeah, that's that. So I'll catch you for the, I guess, next month or next fortnight when they do another one. And yeah, see you next time. Fortnight, by the way, it's not the game's 2 weeks. It's just a term of phrase over here. Bye.